Hey there, and welcome back to Final Affairs. You already know what we're here to do. We're here to break down the messy, dramatic, and oh so important conversations around life, death, and what happens after. But before we jump in, let me share with you a very quick disclaimer. See, the stories that I share here are based on real life events, but listen, I am only human. I might get some details wrong or maybe add a little extra flair to keep things juicy. My goal isn't to provide a court transcript, it's to make you think, to make you laugh, and most importantly, to make sure that you act. All right, with that out of the way, let's get into today's story. And y'all, this one is a cautionary tale for the ages. We're going to be talking about Giselle Bryant from The Real Housewives of Potomac. She is very much alive, okay? Let me just say that. But we're going to be talking about the legal and emotional chaos that she's currently facing after her father, Curtis Graves, passed away.
Okay, so he had a will that we think somebody threw in the trash can the last week that he was alive after his brain surgery. Somehow, supposedly, he signed a will.
If you've ever thought to yourself, oh, I don't need a will, or my family would never fight over my stuff, this episode is for you. Let me tell you, when it comes to money, legacy, and unclear plans, no family is immune. See, Giselle Bryant's father, Curtis Graves, he passed away in July 2023. Now, as his children and grandchildren, Giselle and her family assumed, rightfully so, that they'd be included in his will. Sounds reasonable, right? Of course. But here's where things get a little messy.
For whatever reason, 2 days after his brain surgery, someone around him had a will signed supposedly by him. And I was with him, actually. He was not able to sign anything, read anything, none of that. My dad stood on making sure that generational wealth is passed. Nothing was left to me, and nothing was left to my children, my father's grandchildren, which were probably more important to him.
There was an original will, one that made provision for the family, but that will, allegedly, it was discarded, just gone. Then, out of the clear blue sky, out of nowhere, a new will appears. This one, it was reportedly signed just 2 days after Curtis underwent brain surgery. Y'all, 2 days. You're hearing that right. Now, let me ask you this. Does that sound like someone who's in the best condition to make legally binding decisions? Yeah, exactly. And to make matters worse, this will completely cuts out Giselle, her siblings, and her father's grandchildren. Nothing. Zip. Nada. Absolutely nothing. Naturally, Giselle is contesting this in court. And under Georgia law, where this will go through probate, if the court throws out this new will, Curtis would be considered to have died intestate, meaning he died without a valid will, essentially. In that case, if he dies without a valid will, the estate would be divided according to state rules, which means Giselle and her siblings would inherit 2/3 of it. So yeah. The stakes here, they're pretty high. And the lessons, oh, we've got plenty of those coming up. And I know what some of you are thinking. This is rich people drama. My family doesn't have millions, so we're good. But let me stop you right there. This isn't just about the size of the estate. It's about clarity. So I'll hit you with a hypothetical example. Say your dad owns a family home. It's not a mansion, but it's got sentimental value. He always says, when I'm gone, this house is yours. But he never writes it down. This is similar to the Anna Nicole Smith story that we talked about. He never gets a will, never makes it official. Then he passes away. And his new spouse, someone who's been in the picture for maybe a couple of years, decides she's keeping the house. What happens next? Well, you're in court. You're spending money. You're spending time. And you're spending emotional energy fighting for what you thought was already yours. So, do you see what I mean here? Estate planning isn't just for the wealthy. It's for anyone who wants to avoid chaos. Now, let's talk about the key lessons from this whole ordeal. Because while Giselle's situation is heartbreaking, it's also packed with a lot of teachable moments. First things first, you need a will and you need to secure it. Don't just scribble your wishes on a piece of paper and hope for the best. That's a recipe for disaster. Here's how you do it the right way. First, I encourage you to work with an estate attorney to draft a legally sound will. You're actually listening to one. Feel free to reach out to me, www.lawrooted.com. The second thing I'll say is make sure that will is signed, witnessed, and notarized. Then the third thing is that you store it somewhere safe, a lawyer's office, a fireproof safe, or even a secure digital platform. And don't forget, make sure someone you trust knows where to find it. If Curtis's original will had been properly secured, it couldn't have just disappeared, right? Someone would have a copy. So now let's talk about timing. Curtis reportedly signed that new will just 2 days after brain surgery. Let me tell you, that's a red flag the size of a football field. And football fields are quite large. I don't have the specifics, but they're large. If you or your loved one is recovering from a major medical event, it is not the time to be making big legal decisions, period. This is why it is so important to plan ahead. Don't wait until you're in a vulnerable position to start making decisions that are about your legacy. In fact, that may actually call to question whether you had capacity to make those decisions. Here's the pro move. First, set up a trust. I talk about this all the time. A trust is the best way to go. After all this drama, Giselle decided to create a trust for her daughters, and honestly, that's the smartest thing she could have done. She's now thinking ahead after experiencing what has happened with her father's passing, and so that's super smart for her future. Here's the deal. A will is public, and it can be contested. A trust is private. It's harder to challenge, and it gives you more control over how your assets are distributed. Yes, a trust may take more time to develop and may be more pricey to work with an attorney, but it is absolutely the best thing to do. Think of a trust as a safety net for your legacy. See, if Curtis had created a trust, this whole court battle, the whole ordeal, it could have been completely avoided. All right, let's get a little practical, because it's not enough to just shake your head and say, wow, that's crazy. You need to act. After hearing this, you need to take some action. Here's your step-by-step guide to protecting your final affairs. First, I want you to draft a will or a trust. My preference is going to be a trust. If you don't already have one, this is your first priority. I want you to work with an estate attorney to get it done right, someone like myself or an attorney in your local area in your state who is licensed to practice law in your state. Then I want you to pick someone you trust to carry out your wishes. This isn't a job for the family troublemaker. This is a job for someone you absolutely trust. I want you to sit your family down and tell them exactly what you want. Don't tell half of your family and not the other half. Clarity now prevents conflict later. So tell everybody the same thing. Life happens, marriages, divorces, new kids, new assets. Update your plan as needed. Next, I want you to store your will or trust in a safe, accessible location and make sure someone knows how to access it and where to access it. All right, folks, so here's the bottom line. Giselle Bryant's story is a tough reminder that estate planning isn't just about money. It's about avoiding heartache, confusion, and legal battles for the people that you love. So I want to encourage you today, don't wait. Take control, protect your legacy, and make sure your true intentions are honored. I want to thank y'all again for joining me on this episode of Final Affairs. I'm here to help you navigate the tough but necessary conversations about life, death, and everything in between. Until next time, take care of yourselves